Can I be honest with you for a second? There are people watching this right now who work hard. I mean really hard. 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week. People who set alarms at 5 a.m. People who skip lunches. People who haven't taken a real vacation in years. And yet, every month, the money is just gone. You check your bank account and somehow, you're right back at zero. Or worse. And it feels like no matter how much you earn, you can never get ahead. Like you're running on a treadmill that someone else controls the speed on. If that hits close to home, I need you to keep watching. Because what I'm about to share isn't about working harder. You're already doing that. This is about 5 money mistakes that nobody ever sat us down and warned us about that are quietly, systematically keeping millions of Americans broke. And the painful part? Most of us are making all 5. Let's get into it. Picture this. You get a raise at work. Maybe it's $5,000 more a year. Maybe it's $10,000. And for a split second, you feel it, that rush of relief. Finally, you made it. And then what happens? You upgrade your apartment. You get the newer car. You start eating out more. You justify the nicer clothes because, hey, you deserve it. You worked for this. And 12 months later, you look around and think, where did it all go? This is called lifestyle inflation, and it is one of the most dangerous financial traps in America because it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like progress. Here's the truth nobody tells you. A raise only changes your life if your expenses don't rise with it. The average American gets a 3 to 4% raise every year, and the average American spends 100% of every dollar they make. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. That's the consumer culture we grew up in, the one that taught us that earning more means spending more, that taught us that success looks like something. Think about where we learned about money growing up. We learned it from watching our parents, from TV commercials, from social media showing us highlight reels of people's lives. Nobody, not in school, not at home, sat us down and said, hey, when you get more money, don't touch it. So what do you do instead? The next time your income goes up, whether it's a raise, a bonus, a tax refund, whatever, I want you to try something called the 50% rule. Take at least half of that new money and automate it straight to savings or investments before you ever see it. Let the other half feel like a treat. But protect that first half like your future depends on it. Because it does. Lifestyle inflation is silent. It creeps in through subscriptions you forgot about, through restaurants instead of groceries, through just this once purchases that somehow happen every weekend. And before you know it, you're making more money than you ever have, and somehow still broke. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Mistake 2. Let me ask you something. Do you have a credit card balance right now that you're only making minimum payments on? If you do, and statistically there's a very good chance you do, because over 45% of Americans carry credit card debt month to month, I need you to understand something that the credit card companies are really hoping you never figure out. When you make the minimum payment on a credit card, you are, in many cases, barely touching the actual debt. You're mostly just paying the interest. The balance barely moves. And meanwhile, that 24, 25, sometimes 29% interest rate is compounding. Every single month. Let me give you a real example. Say you have $5,000 in credit card debt at a 24% interest rate. If you only make the minimum payment, usually around 2% of the balance, do you know how long it takes to pay that off? Over 20 years. And by the time you're done, you'll have paid nearly $14,000 on a $5,000 debt. Let that sink in. That's not a loan. That's a trap. A perfectly legal, perfectly designed trap that millions of Americans are sitting in right now, thinking they're managing just fine because they're making their payments on time. And here's the emotional gut punch of it all. Debt doesn't just steal your money, It steals your options. It steals the feeling that you can quit a job you hate, or take a chance on something you love, or handle an emergency without completely falling apart. I've talked to people who are physically sick with anxiety about money, who can't sleep, who fight with their spouse or their partner about bills, who feel ashamed, deeply ashamed, like they failed somehow. And they're good people, smart people, hard-working people. Debt is not a moral failure, but minimum payments are a mathematical disaster, and you need to treat them like one. The strategy? Look up the debt avalanche method or the debt snowball method. Both work. The avalanche has you attacking the highest interest debt first to save the most money. The snowball has you paying off the smallest balance first to build momentum. Pick the one that keeps you motivated, and then go to war with your debt like your financial life depends on it, because it does. Mistake 3. Here's a statistic that should scare all of us. According to recent data, nearly 60% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency from their savings. 60%. Think about that. One blown tire, one trip to the ER, one busted water heater, and the majority of this country would have to go into debt just to handle it. And this is where the cycle starts. The cycle that keeps people poor for decades. Because here's what happens when you don't have an emergency fund. Life happens. And when life happens, you put it on a credit card, or you take out a personal loan, or you borrow from your 401k, and now you have new debt. Debt born from a crisis, not from a choice. And you spend the next year trying to dig out of it. And just when you almost do, something else happens. Another emergency. More debt. Round and round it goes. Living without an emergency fund isn't a money strategy, it's financial Russian roulette. And most of us are playing it every single month because we tell ourselves, I'll save once things slow down. Once I pay off this. Once I make more. But things never slow down, and the emergencies never ask for permission. Here's what I want you to do. Start with $1,000. That's it. Just $1,000. Put it in a separate savings account, one you don't look at, one you don't touch. Call it your break glass in case of emergency fund. That single buffer will stop the bleeding for most of life's curveballs. Then build it up to 3 to 6 months of expenses over time. And I know what you're thinking. I barely have anything left over each month. How am I supposed to save $1,000? Here's the honest answer. If you can't save anything on your current income, the problem isn't savings. It's the gap between what comes in and what goes out. Which leads us to mistake number 4. I want you to honestly ask yourself, do you know exactly where your money went last month? Not roughly. Not, I think I spent like $300 on food maybe. Exactly. To the dollar. If you don't, you're flying blind, and you can't fix what you can't see. Here's the painful irony. Most people avoid looking at their finances because it causes anxiety. It's stressful. It's embarrassing. So they just don't look. They don't open the bank statements. They swipe the card and hope for the best. They tell themselves they'll figure it out later. But avoidance doesn't make the numbers better. It just means you're the last one to know how bad it is. In America, we have a weird cultural thing where talking about money is almost taboo. We'll talk about our problems, our relationships, our health, but finances? That's private. That's shameful. And because nobody talks about it openly, everybody assumes they're the only one struggling. You're not. Trust me. A budget is not a punishment. A budget is not restrictive. A budget is just a plan. It's you telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Try this. For 1 month, track every dollar you spend. Write it down, use an app, whatever works for you. Then put your spending into 3 buckets: needs, rent, utilities, groceries, transportation. Wants, eating out, entertainment, subscriptions, clothes. And future, savings, debt payoff, investments. Most people find that when they actually look at their numbers, there are places, sometimes shocking places, where money is leaking out silently. Subscriptions they forgot about, daily purchases that add up to hundreds, a gym membership for a gym they haven't visited since January. That awareness alone, just seeing it, is the beginning of change. You can't win a game you're not paying attention to. Mistake 5. This last one might be the most heartbreaking of all, because the damage is invisible until it's too late to undo it. So many Americans are waiting to invest, waiting until they're out of debt, waiting until they make more money, waiting until they figure it out. And I understand that, I really do. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, the stock market feels like something that belongs to other people. Rich people, lucky people, people with options. But here's what compounding interest actually means in real life. If you invest just $200 a month starting at age 25, at an average return of 7%, by the time you're 65, you'll have roughly $525,000. If you wait until you're 35 to start that same $200 a month, you'll have around $243,000. Same amount of money, same rate of return. A 10-year difference. That's not a small gap. That's $250,000 that vanishes simply because of waiting. And yet, here's the system we grew up in. Nobody in school taught us about compound interest in a way that was real and urgent. Nobody made us open a Roth IRA at 22. We were told to go to college, get a job, work hard. And we did. But the piece about growing wealth, about making money work for us instead of just working for money, that piece got skipped. So people hit 40, 45, 50, and realize they have almost nothing saved for retirement. And the panic sets in. And they either give up, it's too late for me anyway, or they make desperate moves trying to catch up. It's never too late to start, but the sooner, the more powerful. You don't need a lot of money to begin. You need consistency. Start with $50 a month if that's all you have. Open a Roth IRA. Contribute to your employer's 401k, especially if there's a match, because a match is free money. Put it on autopilot and forget it exists. The goal isn't to get rich quick. The goal is to stop being poor, slow. So let's bring it all together. 5 mistakes. 5 patterns that are so common, so normalized in America, that most of us don't even recognize them as mistakes. We just think it's life. We just think this is how it is. 1. Lifestyle inflation. When you earn more, save more. Don't just spend more. 2. Minimum payments. They are designed to keep you in debt forever. Attack your debt aggressively. 3. No emergency fund. Life will throw something at you. The question is whether you'll be ready. 4. No budget. You cannot manage what you refuse to look at. Face the numbers. 5. Not investing early. Time is the most valuable asset you have. Don't waste another year of it. And listen, I want to say something important before we close. If you recognized yourself in any of these, or all of these, I don't want you to walk away from this feeling ashamed. Shame is not the point. The point is clarity. The point is that the moment you understand why something is happening, you have the power to change it. Nobody handed us a roadmap for this. The system we grew up in was not designed to make us wealthy. It was designed to make us consumers, to keep us working, spending, and borrowing in a cycle that benefits everyone but us. But that cycle has an exit ramp, and it starts with a decision, a single, quiet decision that says, not anymore. You don't need a windfall. You don't need a lucky break. You need a plan, some patience, and the willingness to do the uncomfortable thing, to look at the numbers, to say no to some things now so you can say yes to everything later. The life you want is not out of reach. It's just on the other side of these 5 habits. And now you know the way. If this hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You might change their life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.